Matthew and Sandy Lyles were a young couple coming up on the best years of their lives. After years of hard work and saving, they finally settled down in a nice suburban home, surrounded by picket fences and lush green lawns. It was a hot summer day, and Matt was working on the AC unit when the mailman stopped by to deliver the mail. He was unrealistically perfect looking, with chiseled features and piercing blue eyes. It was almost unsettling. "Hey there, neighbor," the mailman said with a grin. "Need any help with that AC?" Matt hesitated for a moment, but he was grateful for the help. As they worked on the unit, the mailman started making small talk. "You know, my great-grandfather invented air conditioning, Matthew," the mailman said. "He never told anyone, though. He kept it for himself. One day we found him frozen to the floor. I hated that man." Matt didn't know what to make of that statement, but he brushed it off as a strange joke. Over the next few weeks, the mailman kept showing up with excuses to see Matt and Sandy. Matt started feeling uneasy around the mailman, but Sandy seemed to enjoy his company. It was almost as if she was under some sort of spell. One day, when Matt arrived home from work, he found the mailman sitting on the couch next to Sandy, watching TV. "What are you doing here?" Matt demanded. "Just hanging out with my friends," the mailman replied with a smirk. Matt felt a surge of anger but didn't know what to do. It seemed like the mailman was taking over his life without him even realizing it. Days turned into weeks, and the mailman's visits became more and more frequent. Matt found himself sleeping on the couch while the mailman slept in his bed next to Sandy. He felt like he was losing his mind. "You see how easily I can hold you up with one arm?" the mailman taunted one day. "Your fear is disgusting to me. I think I'll have our wife bathe me after this." Matt tried to fight back, but he was no match for the mailman's strength. He was trapped in his own home, and Sandy seemed oblivious to everything that was happening. One day, in a moment of desperation, Matthew called the United States Postal Service to complain about the mailman. But when he did, they told him something that chilled him to the bone. "Sir, we don't even deliver to that address," the person on the other end of the line said. "In fact, that address doesn't show up on any of our address computers. Please do not call us again." It was then that Matt realized he was living in a nightmare. "The house is mine. The job is mine. The Sandy is mine," the mailman said with a wicked grin. "Don't worry, you can have them back later. Let's say around the time the sun dies." Matt knew he had to get out of there, but he didn't know how. He felt like he was losing his grip on reality. "Taking, stealing, absorbing, those are my candy, my little pleasures," the mailman said as he loomed over Matt. "You wouldn't happen to be hiding any lost sailors around here, would you, Matthew?" Matt had no idea what the mailman was talking about, but he knew he had to do something. He searched the house for a weapon and found a screwdriver. He liked the weight of it in his hand, the way the light danced off the words "Harbor Freight." When the mailman entered the room, Matt lunged at him with the screwdriver. The two men wrestled on the floor, each trying to gain the upper hand. Matt's heart was pounding and his thoughts were a jumbled mess, but he knew he had to keep fighting if he wanted to survive. Suddenly, there was a bright flash of light, and the mailman disappeared. Matt looked around in confusion, wondering if he had finally lost his mind. But then he felt some sort of god being's hand on his shoulder that day, and he heard a voice whisper in his ear. "Matthew, you are not alone. I am here to help you." Matt turned around to see a ghostly figure standing before him. It was a man dressed in old-fashioned sailor clothes, and he had a strange ethereal glow. "I'm the soul of a lost sailor. My name is Herman Pritchloffer," the ghost said. "I've been watching you struggle, and I'm here to offer my assistance." Matt was skeptical, but he didn't have any other options. He followed the ghostly sailor out of the house and onto the street. "Where are we going?" Matt asked. "To the ocean," Herman replied. "It's the only place where we can stop the mailman." As they walked, Herman told Matt the story of how he became a lost sailor. He had been part of a crew sailing in 1854, and they had been caught in a terrible storm. The ship had sunk and all of the crew had perished, except for Herman. He was cursed to wander the earth for eternity, never able to find rest. But now, he had a chance to redeem himself by helping Matt. As they approached the ocean, Matt felt a sense of dread wash over him. He didn't know how they were going to stop the mailman, but he knew he had to try. Suddenly, the mailman appeared out of nowhere, laughing maniacally. "You had better learn how to breathe dirt, because there isn't going to be any air where you're headed," he said as he grabbed Sandy and vanished. Matt felt a surge of anger and fear, but Herman remained calm. "Don't worry, Matthew, we'll get her back," he said. "But first we need to stop the mailman." Herman explained that the mailman was a creature from another dimension, and he had the power to manipulate reality. But he had a weakness. He couldn't exist without a physical body. "He needs a host to survive," Herman said, "and we need to find that host and destroy it." They searched the beach, looking for any sign of the mailman. As they walked, Herman told Matt about the 9th dimension, a place of eternal darkness and suffering. Hell is a made-up story for kids, but the 9th dimension is very similar and very real, Herman said. "That's where I'm going to send you and the Sandy if we don't stop the mailman." Matt shuddered at the thought, but he knew he had to be brave. They finally found the mailman's host, a crab that was scuttling along the sand. Herman instructed Matt to smash the crab with his screwdriver until only dust was left, and he did so with trembling hands. Instantly, the mailman appeared before them, his physical form dissolving into nothingness. With that, he vanished, leaving Matt and Herman standing on the beach, panting and exhausted. "Thank you, Herman," Matt said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Herman smiled faintly. "Don't thank me yet, Matthew. He still has one form left. We still have yet to fully banish the mailman from our realm, and we've got to save Sandy. I know you hate her for what she did, but she doesn't deserve the 9th dimension. It's hot there this time of year." Herman led Matt to a small boat near the shore. They got in and rowed out into the ocean. As they sailed, Herman explained that the mailman was a powerful being who had found a way to manipulate reality. He had been taking over people's lives for centuries, and he had always managed to avoid getting caught. "He's a being of pure chaos," Herman said, "but he has a weakness. In his final form, he can only hold on to his power for a limited time. If we can stall him long enough, his power will fade, and we'll be able to take him down." Matt was filled with a sense of purpose. He had to save Sandy and stop the mailman from hurting anyone else. As they sailed, Herman taught Matt everything he knew about fighting chaos. He taught him how to use his fear as a weapon, how to stay focused in the face of danger, and how to trust his instincts. Finally, they arrived at a small island in the middle of the ocean. The mailman was there, standing in the middle of a large glowing circle. Sandy was lying unconscious on the ground next to him. "I'm surprised you made it this far," the mailman said with a smirk. "But it doesn't matter. You can't stop me." Matt and Herman charged towards the mailman, ready to fight. The mailman laughed and gestured towards them. A bolt of energy shot out of his hand, knocking Herman to the ground. Matt felt a surge of anger and fear. He knew he had to keep fighting. He lunged towards the mailman, but the mailman was too quick. He grabbed Matt's wrist and twisted it, causing Matt to drop the screwdriver. It fell to the ground and exploded. "You're not going anywhere, Matt," the mailman said with a wicked grin. "I have plans for you." Suddenly, Herman appeared behind the mailman. He swung a rusty old anchor at the mailman's head, knocking him to the ground. "Go get Sandy," Herman said. "I'll hold him off." Matt ran over to Sandy and lifted her up. She was groggy but conscious. "We have to get out of here," Matt said. As they turned to leave, the mailman stood up. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, but he was still smiling. "You're not going anywhere," he said as he gestured towards them. Suddenly, the sky grew dark and the wind began to howl. A giant vortex appeared above them, pulling everything towards it. "He's losing his grip on reality," Herman said. "You have to get out of here before it's too late." "We aren't leaving you here, Herman. We need you," Matthew screamed. But Herman had nothing left to say. He just looked at Matt in the eyes and nodded with that boyish grin Matt came to love. That nod said, "Go on, you crazy kids. Get out of here, all right?" All of a sudden, Herman's attention was fixed back on the mailman. He lunged for Matt and Sandy, but the sailor had summoned ghostly anchor chains that coiled around the mailman like snakes. Matthew finally understood now. Matt and Sandy ran towards the boat. As they rowed away from the island, They watched in horror as the mailman was sucked into the vortex, disappearing from sight. They didn't speak for a long time as they sailed back to shore. When they finally arrived, they were exhausted, but they were alive. "Thank you for saving me," Sandy said as they walked towards the house. "Thank Herman," Matt said. "He's the one who really saved us." When they got back to the house, Herman was nowhere to be found. Matt searched the house and the surrounding area, but he couldn't find any sign of him. "He's gone," Matt said as he sat down on the couch. "He sacrificed himself to save us." Sandy sat down next to him, and they held each other for a long time, grateful to be alive. But as they sat there, Matt couldn't shake the feeling that the mailman would come back someday, and when he did, Matt would be ready. He knew that he had to be prepared for anything.